Ozma lashes. While we're waiting, I'd love to know where you're from. I'm also filming on YouTube at the same time. So I'm here in Vancouver, Canada, and happy 4th of July to my American friends. We had our Canada Day on Saturday, and we celebrate ours on July 1st, and yours is July 4th. In case you didn't know that we're July 1st. Okay, so where are you from? So if you had today off, that means last night would have been party night, but you're parents, so you're probably not partying much anyway, right? But I guess your fireworks would be tonight. Okay, just waiting for people to turn up here. So while we're waiting, I'd love to know where you're from. I'm in Vancouver. USA. Where in the USA? Saudi Arabia. Haifa. Have you been here before? Saudi Arabia. That's a ways away. What time is it there? Saudi Arabia. Just going to look it up. Alberta. Regular. Little Rock. Hi, Little Rock. Yes, you have been here before. Saudi Arabia. Time. Just a second. I'm just going to look up the time. Versus Vancouver time. You're 10 hours ahead. Oh, okay. 10 hours ahead. Wow. Okay. 3 a.m. Yeah, wow. And you're 7 p.m. Little Rock, Arkansas. I just love Southern accents. Oh, I got to turn the light on here. Sorry. I had mood lighting going. It's supposed to be really sunny today, but it's not. Okay, so where are you from? Just curious. Find it fascinating. Love your advice. Excellent. Appreciate that. Appreciate the support. That's why I keep turning up. It's because people say that I'm helping them. So that's why if I wasn't helping, I wouldn't keep turning up. I've been doing these lives now every day for at least a year, sometimes twice a day. Whitehall. That's not Arkansas. Arizona. Whitehall, Arizona. I've never heard of that before. Arizona's, that's AR. Whitehall. I'm just curious. Whitehall, Arizona. Oh, it is Arkansas. What's Arizona? Oh, AZ is Arizona. Sorry. Whitehall. I don't know anything about Arkansas. I know you had a president from there once. Was that Clinton? Bill Clinton? Okay, I'm just looking it up here. Arkansas. Oh, I see. Wow, you're right in that southern area there. Yeah, okay. Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee. Interesting. Clinton, yeah. I'm always fascinated by people being disappointed in their president's personal lives. It takes a huge ego to be that high up in politics. So I'd be stunned if they weren't, a little bit narcissistic, because it just takes a huge ego. And I don't think that's a bad thing in that position. Okay, so let's get going with your parenting questions. If you go in the link above, I've got everything in bullet form now, everything I've got to offer. You can hire me for coaching, buy one of my courses. I've got the 5 weeks to respect one out now. And or you can get my free behavior board. That's the start of kind of everything. And it can get you going and see how you go just with that. Some people are getting success just with that. Oklahoma. Okay, 2-year-old daughter hitting the dog a lot lately. You're going to hate my advice. I always say rehome an animal. If you can't keep an animal safe in its own home, find another home for it. Like I'm such an animal lover, and that would upset me. I would absolutely rehome a pet if they were getting hurt in my home, if I couldn't protect them and keep them safe. So sorry about that, but I always had pets with my kids, but if they had hit an animal, I might have got rid of the kid, but no, probably the animal. We have 8 dogs and we breed. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah. Well, what do you want from me? Like, you just have to keep them separate. You can't let the 2-year-old near the animals so they can hit them. You just have to keep them separate. Like, you can't really change that with a 2-year-old. It takes them too long to learn not to hit. So I wouldn't allow that to happen. I wouldn't. I would keep them separate. My daughter's so rude to me, it makes me feel bad. What should I do? Well, your feelings you have to put aside when you're parenting. You just have to think, okay, what should I do? Treat it like a business transaction sometimes when you're figuring out what to do. So yeah, it's like a business transaction, like that whole behavior board. That's all business. That you just have to remove your emotions before you can really set up this leadership stuff. You can still have fun with them and play with them, but when you're disciplining and setting up that behavior board, it's like there's no emotions involved in that. So that is your weakness there, is your emotions are getting involved. And also if they're rude to you, you're just not a leader. If you're a leader, they're not rude to you. It's just the way it goes. Work on your leadership skills. We're never fixing kids here. We're training parents. Kids don't need fixing. They're just a result of your parenting. So you're the source of everything. You're the source of all their behavior, which is good news. You can only control yourself anyway. So that's what you need to do, is learn how to be a leader. That's all it is. She's 12 and thinks she knows everything. You got to work on your leadership skills. That's all it is. I specialize in teenagers, and yeah, you got to work on yourself. It's not about her. It just isn't. It's never about the kids. It's always about the parents. Yeah, you're right. We have to learn how to be leaders. That's all I teach here. I teach parenting. I don't teach teenagering or toddlering or kidding. I teach parenting because their behavior is just a result of your parenting. They're reflecting your parenting. That's all it is. That is everything. That's it. So yeah, you just have to learn how to be a leader. Is there a book? No, I've never written a book on this, and it's all my own stuff that I've learned through kids. So no one else teaches this. That's not true. Some people have been teaching my methods, but then they get caught out during coaching because you can't. You have to be able to. You have to know it all, right? If you're coaching, but yeah, they get caught out. Um, at least that's what my clients tell me. You need the help. Is there a book? Yeah, well, I've got a course on that if you're interested. It's a 5-week course, and it's called Get Respect in 5 Weeks, and it's in the link above there. That's the best source I've got right now, aside from one-on-one coaching. But that course has kind of everything in it, like all the information in it. And then the coaching is me dealing with your emotions, your marriage issues, your all that extra stuff, and your questions. That's just one-on-one coaching, and lots of people prefer that. Um, Amy. I love you too. Thank you very much. In a non-weird way. That's okay. I remember years ago, Michael Jackson was the first celebrity who used to say that, I love you all. And I thought, you don't know us. Like, you just yell it out to a crowd, I love you, I love every one of you. And I'm like, I remember growing up thinking that was weird that he said that. How did he know us? Like, there was no interaction even. Like, you know what I mean? Like, my kid thinks he knows it all. How would I go about fixing that? I don't know how old he is and what kind of parent you are. Um, yeah, so he's arrogant. I don't know. I don't know where that comes from. That would be more coaching. So I'd have to figure out what's the source of that, and yeah, go from there. I'm guessing you're a right fighter. You know what I mean by that? I'm guessing because that sort of builds that arrogance in kids. Could be something else though. I wouldn't take me that long to figure it out. What are the effects on a child when a parent gives them conflicting messages? One of the best examples, simple examples of that, is the countdown method. You better stop that by the time I count to 3. So it's okay to hit someone for three seconds, but after that it's not. It's a conflicting message, right? That's my absolute worst, least favorite parenting method that's out there and common, is the countdown method. You better stop that by the time I count to 3. It just doesn't make any sense at all. So it's okay to pound your little brother for 3 seconds, and then when you stop, there's no punishment, nothing, and it's just crazy. But the effects on that is they don't respect you. That's the effect of it. They don't respect you. Sometimes the parent may be responsive to the child's need, but other times they will be I don't know what you mean by that. I'd need an example of that. My 10-year-old daughter has never seen me cry. Is that normal? No, I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that, to be honest. And I always say it's okay to cry in front of your kids, but you never sob and you never lose control with it. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to scare them. But it's okay if someone dies or something, it's fine if they see you cry. I remember years ago, I used to do, it was a palliative care center, and I was there to work it was a volunteer situation. All my positions with kids were volunteer. And it was me supporting the kids when they had parents in palliative care. So after school, they'd come in and they'd visit their parents who were dying. I think they're given 2 weeks. By the time they hit palliative care, they're usually in there for about 2 weeks. So you can just imagine what these kids are going through. Anyway, and so I said to the people running it, I said, is it okay if I cry when their parents are wheeled out, when they die? And they said, yes, but they said, never cry harder or longer than the family, because that would just be stupid. So it's kind of like that with kids. Like, don't cry too hard or too long, like just sort of keep it under control. I don't show much emotions. Yeah, I don't know where you're going with that. Okay, thank you. I'm scared I'm not allowing her to express myself because I don't know how either. She can't express herself because you don't. Yeah, I'm very emotion based. Like I everything I do, I run more on emotions than just reason. That's sort of the way I run. We're all different. We run through emotions or reasoning. There's just and when I'm disciplining, no emotions whatsoever, none whatsoever. The rest of the time, I'm all emotions. I laugh easily. I cry easily. I'm very emotional. I'm a very emotional person. But when I'm disciplining, it's like, excuse me, I didn't like that. All of a sudden, there's no emotions. So yeah, the discipline, there should be no emotions in that. 5-year-old is unfazed by consequences, just says, okay, how long I already know. Yeah, you haven't quite figured that out yet. If you want to hire me, I can help you work through that. And sometimes they're just trying to save face. Like, yeah, I don't care what you say, whatever. Just say, okay, fine. Doesn't necessarily, like, they'll often try and save face and they say, I don't care, do whatever you want with me. Say, okay, fine, then mow the lawn or whatever. And so yeah, they're just trying to save face usually. They're trying to keep in the leadership role. Don't let that bother you. It's that the power that they have when you let that stuff get under your skin, that's when they win. Is when they say, well, I don't care, do whatever you want to me. Well, blah, blah, and then you get upset. They just won. They're in charge. I would say something like, well, I'm not doing whatever I want. There's just the consequence, and that's what's happening. I wouldn't care what they say. Like, it doesn't mean anything to me. It's a small group today, which is makes sense. It's July 4th in America. Most of the people on here are Americans, so I'm assuming you're all picnicking and waiting for the fireworks somewhere, right? I really don't know what you mean by this. Sometimes the parent may be responsive to the child's need, but other times they will be blunt. Most discipline is dealing with their wants, not their needs. That's what parents are having a hard time separating sometimes. With all these mini therapy discussions, discussing all their big emotions, their big needs, all that garbage. It's all about the wants, like the needs are love, fun, food, shelter, all those are the needs. So wants are, no, I want ice cream, even though you said no and I've already had too much. That's what you're dealing with. That's not a need, that's a want. It's the discipline is about the wants. So don't get those mixed up. They don't need your compassion when they're just not getting what they want, when they want, and how they want it. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, you don't need to validate that stuff. What do you do if your toddler's having a tantrum in public? Exact the same that you do at home, because you want to be the exact same parent no matter where you are. You don't parent differently when you're out. I was proud of that. If my kid have a tantrum, I was proud of, hey, watch me. I know what I'm doing. Like, Um, yeah, I was the exact same mother no matter where we went. So they behaved well everywhere because they knew mom wasn't afraid of them in public. So don't be afraid of your kids in public. Then they're totally in control. 4-year-old always tells us, no, you got to work on yourself. That's you've taught them that. That's a learned behavior by the age of 4. So you're not a leader. You got to work on your leadership skills. Remember, it's never the kid's fault. They're just reacting to your parenting. That's all they're doing, or your lack of leadership. That's all they're doing. Everyone says, how do I fix my kids? They're not broken. You just haven't learned how to be a leader. They're responding to your lack of leadership. That's all it is. That's everything. How do I explain this? What's a good example of that? What's a really good analogy of that? Because it has nothing to do with the kids. I've worked with hundreds of kids. I got all their respect. Teenagers, troubled teens, violent kids. I got all their respect. Was it them or me? See what I'm saying? It's not the kids. It's you. So work on yourself. It's everything they do. Like whenever I'm working with parents and coaching, and they're all finally at the end of it, they go, "Oh, I get it. I was focused on the kids and not myself. That's the problem." Yeah, it's all about you. That's why it's called parenting, not kidding or toddlering or teenagering. It's parenting. The swimming pool story, odd, is a great example of leadership. Yeah, that pool story is the absolute best story I tell. In coaching, I tell some better ones, but they're a bit raunchier, especially the teenage ones. And I get kids on here. But yeah, the pool story, I'm going to tell it right now. It just explains everything because a leader is someone that they look up to and they feel good about themselves around you. That is the goal. You're not trying to belittle them and make them obedient little soldiers. That's the old-fashioned authority style parenting. We're not doing that. We want them to feel good about themselves when they're with you. They want to please you. Therefore, their self-esteem goes up because it's just the way it goes. So I'll tell the pool story. It's just a perfect story in that it's got so many lessons in it. It's a true story. My son was his eighth birthday. We had a swimming pool. My husband took our daughter out somewhere else, and it was just me with 6 8-year-old boys. And all I was doing was counting heads. I'm a safety freak. Like all I'm doing is sitting there. And the other mothers would say, "Oh, can I stay too?" And I said, "Yeah, but I'm not talking to you." Because that's when kids drown, is when you're having a party and adults are all figuring other people are watching the kids. I was always the boring one who didn't talk to anyone, just counting heads. Anyway, so I said, "Yeah, but I won't be talking to you because I'm counting heads the whole time." So they all left. So anyway, just me and a whole bunch of 8-year-olds. So I said, "Okay, now Whaley's over there." Whaley was a giant blow-up toy, and I took him out of the pool because I can't see behind him. And all I'm doing is counting heads. 3 kids could have died behind Whaley. I wouldn't even have known it. And now Whaley, I didn't have a pump blow up. I had to blow it up myself, or the kids did. So that's why I didn't want to take the air out. So I just had him off to the side. And I said, "So Whaley stays there." Sure enough, one of the kids took Whaley in the pool. Now I said to him, "Whaley, out of the pool now." And he said to me, "No." And my son instantly went like this because he was looking forward to the show. He knows mom knows how to take care of business. And I never had to discipline my own kids. They wouldn't have said that to me. So anyway, I was in the pool so fast, fully clothed, and I had that kid out sitting beside me like that. I didn't even know what happened. He's sitting beside me. And I said, "Okay, you're going to sit beside me for 10 minutes now." Now, my son took Whaley out of the pool, and I was just counting 5 heads and talking to this kid. Now, the whole time he's sitting beside me, I'm talking to him like this. "I saw you at soccer the other day. You did great. Didn't you get a goal? And then remember the other day I helped you with that test in class? You got 97% on that test. That's phenomenal. So what kind of PlayStation games do you like?" Blah, blah, blah. He was just having a great time. So the 10 minutes is up, and I said to him, "Okay, go back in the pool and have fun." He didn't want to go back in the pool. He kept talking to me. I couldn't get rid of this kid. Finally, I got him in the pool. The rest of the afternoon, he bent over backwards trying to please me. "Can I help you with the cake? Oh God," like I couldn't get rid of him. So, but anyway, why did I not say that? I'll go right through it, how I handled it and why. Why did I not say, "Can you please take Whaley out of the pool?" Why would I not say it like that? Because he's already rude to me. It was a dangerous thing he'd done. And I said, "I want Whaley out of the pool now." So that's why there was no please or anything with that, because that was a direct order. This is a safety issue, right? So anyway, and then he said no to me. So that was my son. I got to take care of business. I got him out of the pool really quickly. And then when he sat down beside me, why did I not say why I took him out of the pool? He already knows. Why would I dwell on that stuff? Those are those mini therapy session garbage things I hate. He already knows what just happened. Plus, then why am I? And I told him exactly what's going to happen. I was very clear. For 10 minutes, you're going to sit here now and sit beside me. And I didn't say, because you did that. That's just rubbing salt in the wound. I think that's just awful. So anyway, then why am I talking about everything great he does? I'm building him up, building him up, building him up. I am trying to bring out the good kid rather than the bad kid. Rather than focusing on the bad stuff, I'm focusing on the good kid. Now, what did I get the rest of that day? The good kid. See what I mean? I put all my energy into the good kid. I dealt with the bad kid like that really quick. And then it's all about the good kid. Then why did he not even want to go back in the pool? Because all of a sudden I'm building trust. He thinks we're friends now. He feels great about himself. And he didn't even want to get back in the pool. Now also, why did I not say, just a sec, I got an ambulance going by. I live downtown. Then why did I not say to him, don't put Whaley in the pool again? Because then I'm ending on a negative note. Like, it's sort of, when you're focused on the negative, that's what they become. So it's all positive. And then he was all over me like you wouldn't believe. I couldn't get rid of him. You want any help with the cake? Oh, God, get out of my hair, kid. Couldn't get rid of him. He was trying to please me all the rest of the afternoon. He had a great time. And but anyway, that's a really good example of how you bond with them. It's not about discipline. It's really about connecting and bonding with them. And then once you're that leader, you're like a mentor. They want to please you. It would be embarrassing for them to act up around. He would have been embarrassed to do that again. You see what I mean? It would have been embarrassing for him to do something disrespectful towards me after that. Because I had just built that relationship here. We're sitting here chat. See what I mean? That's what I think of. When I think of leadership parenting, calm leadership parenting, that's what I think of. Is you're building this bond with them and they want to please you. They feel great about themselves when they're with you. Therefore, they want to be around you. They want to please you. You bring out the best in them. They give you your best. Anyways, Mom picked him up and he treated her like garbage. So it didn't last. It was only with me. Lippy teens, you got to work on yourself. They're not rude if you get yourself sorted out. It's different with teenagers. Teenagers, it's almost always one-on-one coaching because we have to do some damage control. I've got to assess why you are where you are because you've got some history now, right? It's not just a matter of 5 or 6 years. You've got probably 15 or 16 years of history with these kids. We got to do some damage control before we even address, and you never address attitude anyway. Their attitude is a direct result of your parenting. So if they're lippy towards you, it's you. You got to work on your parenting. That's all it is. Do these steps work with autistic kids? Not necessarily. That's coaching one-on-one. That's more of a specialty. Would you have told his parent when they came to pick him up? Why would I do that? No, that would have been embarrassing. I already handled it. Why on earth would I do that to him? That would have been mean. No, I wouldn't. Nope. I gave him a hug when he left. I said, great, that was fun. I thought, gee, I won't be having you over again. He was a handful. I already knew him. He was a handful. But yeah, I would never have told his parent. That was between us. I'd already dealt with it. How would you react if your kid answers back to you, but I also want them to speak up for themselves? Well, okay. How do I answer that? It's just, you got so many different, I could go on and on and on about that one. My kids, it was a two-way street, very much so. They always knew they had a voice. And if I messed up and I was impatient, rushing them around, rushing them out the door because I was stressed because we were, running late actually we were never late. I hate being late. But, if we wanted to make sure I wasn't late. And then they would look at each other like this because they knew I was going to be making it up to them. We'd get in the car and they say, Mom, weren't you a little bit rough on us trying to get us in the car? And I go, yeah, what do you want? And then they'd say, we'd like to go to the water slide park after this. So, I was vulnerable too. Like, you got to be vulnerable. I was very accountable for my mistakes. And so, yeah, they absolutely had a voice, 100%. But it wasn't cheeky. There's no need for rudeness. It's the rudeness that I avoided. But, oh boy, my kids, God, they had a voice. They're very good mirrors into your soul. If they're not telling you everything about the way they think about you and the way they feel, then you're doing something wrong because, yeah, you want them to have a voice. You said, what should I do when my spouse's parents won't listen about giving my 2-year-old gum? That's a relationship between you and that's up to him. He has to tell his parents. Yeah, and you got to put your hand. That's a dangerous thing. You don't give a 2-year-old gum. That's dangerous. Yeah, that's up to him. His parents, he has to take control of that. Then they're going to say, well, we gave him gum. He's not your kid though. You see what I mean? That was your kid. This is my kid. So yeah, if they won't listen to that, I can't help you. Okay. I'm really struggling to enjoy playing with my son. How do I enjoy it more? How old is he and what are you doing now? What does he like to do? I'll tell you a cute story. This was a client. Sometimes it's an amalgam, but I do have one in my head in particular. What I mean by that, it's a whole bunch of clients that go through similar stuff, but there was one in particular, and I won't be specific about what they were playing, but the mother had said to me, because I said, you have to play with your kids in their world. Otherwise, this leadership stuff doesn't work. It's not just about, you're not like a drill sergeant. You don't want obedient little soldiers at all. You want to be bonded with your kids. You want to be fun. You want to be friends with your kids, but mutual respect, right? You're like, we don't want any cheekiness either way, by the way. You don't yell at your kids or anything. Like I never yelled. So my parents, they never yelled at me once. I yelled at my son once when he dropped the garbage on the floor, and it was more at the mess. It wasn't like yelling at him. It was more, I actually yelled, and he'd never been yelled at. He was 12 years old and he went pure white. Anyway, I bought him a PlayStation game. I felt so bad about it. And he brought that up for years. He said that was the most traumatic event in his whole life. He was yelled at once, and it wasn't even a big deal. Like it was just one blurt out yell, and he just turned pure white. He'd never been yelled at. So I never yelled at him again. But yeah, yelling is it's a big one. So yeah, okay, this story. This mom said, I don't enjoy my kid. She says, I've never played with them. And I said, you've never played with them? She goes, well, no, I take him to the park. And I said, well, are you rolling down the hill with them? Are you having sliding contests with them? And she looked at me weird. And I said, yeah, you want to play with them in their world. You want to play with them. You don't take them somewhere and watch them play. You want to be interactive. You want to play with them in their world. You don't bond with a little 3-year-old girl at the nail salon. You go to the park and roll down the hill with her. Anyway, so her punishment, she was a yeller. Most of my clients are yellers, almost all of them actually. Anyway, so her rule was no yelling. And if she did yell, she had to play with him for 30 minutes. And I don't know what, it was something like Lego. She never played with him before. She had never played with him. And I think he was 5. She literally had never played with her son. And that's not as uncommon as you would think. Okay. So anyway, I said, okay, so your punishment is that you play with him for 30 minutes if you yell at him. So that was the punishment. She sat down. So the next time that we had a session, she turned up crying. And I said, what happened? Because I see a lot of tears, right? So I didn't think much of it. And I said, what happened? She goes, I yelled at him, so I had to play with him for 30 minutes. And I said, right. And she says, it turned into 3.5 hours. She says, that's the first time I've ever enjoyed my son, like really enjoyed her son. So yeah, once you get that behavior board going, you'll understand it's more about bonding with them than disciplining. Plus, the closer you get to them, they would be embarrassed to be rude to you. It gets to that point that the more you're connected with them, the more you enjoy them, the more you wallow in your children, the less likely they are to act out. Like it would be embarrassing to be rude to you because it's just so much connection. Like it's just so much love going on there. Do you understand that? Anyway, it was a real eye opener for her. And she says, I played for 3.5 hours because he was so sweet. It was the nicest he'd ever been. And I said, why do you think that is? Because you were playing with them, right? They just had this horrible relationship. He was a rotten little kid screaming all the time. But then when she sat down, played with him, all of a sudden he was the sweetest little thing in the world because she was connecting with him. He was just screaming out for love. That's all he was doing. So anyway, yeah, that was a really nice story. It was beautiful, actually. What's the 10-minute rule? You said I play with them all the time, but I don't enjoy it. Are you also disciplining? Do you have a behavior board up? Do you have are you also the leader? You can't just play with them and have them in charge and them snapping their fingers and You know what I'm saying? Like you got to you got to get organized with all this stuff here too. You got to be able to say, no, I don't have time right now. And they go, oh, okay, fine. There's got to be mutual respect going back and forth. It's not just about connecting with them. You also have, because you're meeting their needs and managing their wants. Their wants are what is the discipline's all about. So yeah, you've got to manage that. So yeah, you gotta get a system organized. If you want my help, you can hire me or buy that course, 5 weeks to get respect. If they're between 3 and 12, that's the age. What is the 10-minute rule? I don't know what that is. I'm not spending money taking my kids somewhere. She treats me horribly and says nasty things. Yeah, you got a lot of resentment going on. That is going to get in the way. That is never going to go anywhere good. So you got to work on your own leadership. You got to decide where to go. If you want my help with that, I can set you up with all that stuff. But yeah, you got to work on your own resentment. I get this a lot when I'm working with teenagers in my favorite age. And that's how I started my business, working with parents with troubled teenagers. And the parents hate what I say initially because why should I be nice to them? They treat me like crap. I say, because you're the parent. You have to initiate all this stuff. You have to take the high road. So yeah, parents often argue with me in the first session. I'm ready for it. Another thing too with teenagers especially is they say, I'm just so sick of this one-way street. And I'm like, isn't that parenting? Like a lot, you know what I mean? Are they paying rent? I mean, isn't it kind of all like, it's like give, and then you might get if you're lucky, but you don't have it's your expectations are completely out of whack. Whenever I hear parents say that, I like, your expectations are out of whack. You've got to expect to do nothing but give, and one day you may get. That's what you're doing. You're investing. It's like you're investing. It's that cumulative thing, right? You're building reciprocity. The more that you respect them and set yourself up as a leader, eventually it will pay off. But you've got to give, and then you might get. Give, get. It'll sort of balance out a little bit more down the road, but yeah, it's mostly give. That's what parenting is. It's mostly give. But what you end up getting is a great relationship. That's the payoff, is the great relationship, the friendship. That is your get. And when you got a good friendship going, and then they're not cheeky to you or anything. Okay, how do I stop my 3-year-old from constantly tackling and hurting my 1-year-old? Okay, the 3-year-old can go on the behavior board. That's free. If you go on a link up above there, I've got everything I've got to offer on there. It's just all in bullet point form to make it easier for you. And the behavior board is on the bottom, and it's free. And you just put no hurting your younger sibling. You said 1-year-old. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. And every time he does, you give the 1-year-old something that he likes so his favorite toy gets to go to the 1-year-old for 5-10 minutes, whatever. Every time he hits or hurts the young, and you put no hurting, because sometimes parents will say no hitting. I didn't hit him, but you bit him. It's the same. So that's why you put no hurting your younger sibling. And if he does, he has to do something nice for the younger sibling. He has to give her or him his favorite toy for a few minutes. Is it hard to do? Yeah. Does it work? Usually. It's a good one. It's a good one. And then you would sit with the 1-year-old and play with the 1-year-old with that favorite toy. And he cannot be involved in that at all. My people are having good success on this parenting course. If you're interested, that's that 5 weeks to get respect. And what parents usually say about that, or when I'm coaching them, is they always say, oh, I get it. It's not about the kids. Absolutely. It has nothing to do with the kids. They are reacting to your leadership. Like whenever a kid acted out with me when I was working with kids, whenever they'd act out, I would go, what am I missing here? I would never think, ugh, what's wrong with them? Some kids are more difficult than others, for sure. I never worked with an easy kid, ever. Not once did anyone ever say to me, here's an easy one, Lisa. Not once, not ever, in 51 years of working with kids. Not one person ever said, here's an easy one. They always said, good luck with this one. So yeah, that was how I learned all this, was working with the challenging kids. But whenever they were disrespectful towards me, I always thought, what am I doing wrong here? I never blamed them for it. They're the innocent victims of my mentorship or whatever I was doing with them. You know what I mean? Like I'm just not doing it well enough. I always looked to myself. I always looked in the mirror. Like, what am I missing here? What am I doing wrong? So then I'd tweak it, and I learned. I just learned how to get respect. So never, if you're always looking in a mirror how you can improve yourself, that's where the success is. That's the secret to all this. But all parents say that. By the time they finished working with me, I get it. It's nothing to do with the kids. And I say, yeah, I know. Nothing to do with them. Nothing. I got respect with hundreds or whatever, thousands. I don't know how many kids I've worked with over the 51 years. I was able to get respect from all of them. Was it them or me? And I was always handed the challenging ones. So it's you. You can work, and you can only change yourself anyway. So you can only work on yourself, really. They will react. You lead and they will follow. It's just a natural instinct. Teenagers are a little bit different. You get respect with little ones by disciplining. That's how you start to get respect with little ones or with children. But with teenagers, you got to get respect before you can even think about disciplining. A lot of parents, when they first hire me to work with their teenager, I want to deal with this and that. And they say, yeah, week 3, we might get to that. Week 1 and 2, we're doing damage control. We're getting some reciprocity set up here. So yeah, there's other stuff you have to do first. You have to start getting respect before you can even think about correcting something they're doing. Okay, this one's a little bit. 14 and 11-year-old son. My 14-year-old is not in school. For 2 years, he's been home. How can I help him? That is a coaching issue. I have no idea what's going on, why he's not in school. So that's more of a different level. That's not a TikTok answer here. So if you want my help, you'd have to hire me for one-on-one coaching to try and figure that out. And there's no guarantees with any of this stuff. I'm setting you up as a leader, but there's no guarantees with any of the, life's messy. And nothing's perfect. I mean, parenting's messy, life's messy. We're just working the odds here. You got better odds once you set yourself up as a leader. But especially with teenagers, there's no guarantees that you can turn things around. You can improve them, but you never quite know where you're going to go. Usually we can figure stuff out. And then it's amazing the stuff that, how creative I've had to get with teenagers. Like what I mean is just when I think, okay, I've done it all, or, I've come up with all, then something new will come my way and we have to get really creative. I have to figure out the home life, what the parents are like. I have to work on your strengths and weaknesses too. Sometimes I can't push the parents very hard. I have to be very gentle with parents because often when parents have teenagers and they're really distraught, their mental health is a real problem, the parents. So that's a big challenge with parents of teenagers is the parents' mental health. That's probably 50% of it with parents of teenagers. My friend's having problems with a preteen right now, not showing appreciation. Well, send her to my TikTok. I have a link up there, and it has everything in there. She might want my behavior board, or might want the course, or she can hire me. Now, if they're preteen or tween, is 9 to 12 years old. This is the time to set yourself up. You don't want to wait till they're 13, 15, 16. It's much harder to get respect at that age. It's doable, but it's a lot more work. It's a lot harder. My daughter peed on the chair on purpose because she didn't want to get off her iPad. What to do? Well, how old is she? Is she 2 or 12 or, the age is, okay. I'm just going back to see. So it's Toasty's mama, your daughter peed on the chair. What age? I'll just wait for a second. And that's a control thing, right? But I'm wondering what age. The way you go about dealing with that is different. If they're 2 or 12. Okay, I'm not getting an answer. Okay, that's fine. Tips for weaning an 18-month-old. Weaning them off the boob. What I did with my kids was I wore different tops and they couldn't slide their hands up into my top. And I just said no. And they spent a lot more time with dad. Mom was up and walking around a lot more. I wasn't a victim sitting on a couch waiting for them to come all over me. So that's all I did. I just said no more. And then I replaced it with it was a sippy cup, I think, that I replaced it with. But yeah, my son weaned himself. He was 10 months old. He was one of these. He had to see what I was terrified that a horn would honk or something outside because he would rip my boob across the room to look at it. He was one of those. He liked to see what was going on. And so, boy, and finally I just thought, I can't take any more of this. So I did some pumping and put breast milk in the bottle initially. And he was so happy. He'd be at the bottle, he'd be looking all over. He loved it. My daughter was 14 months, and I swear she'd be breastfeeding. She's 28. She probably wouldn't be breastfeeding still now, but she would have gone a lot longer. But I just said, no more, no more. And then I handed her over to dad, and I made sure I didn't sit down. I walked around a lot, wore tight tops. She couldn't get into it. But yeah, you just have to cut it off. I didn't wean her off slowly. I didn't do a night feed at night. That was it. I just cut it off. So I was feeding, and it got to the point she just loved being held and cuddled all the time. So I would say to her, if you're not eating, you're getting off the boob, and she would, because she knew that if she was just looking at me not feeding, then I would take her off the boob. So she just liked the cuddling and all that. And that's fine too, but I didn't want to be breastfeeding all the time. Enough was enough. I didn't actually like breastfeeding. I liked it once I was sitting down, but it was the thought of it because I felt trapped. I thought, I'm going to be trapped. But both my kids were like 3 minutes on each side, fast feeders. So I was really lucky that way. Okay. My 9-year-old son is really jealous of my 6-year-old girl, hates us doing anything together, mocks and hits. The best way to build a relationship with siblings, especially if they're different sexes and they're years apart, like my kids were a boy and a girl, 5 years apart, they didn't have anything in common, right? But they were very bonded growing up because we did stuff together, the three of us. So we did crazy stuff, but I didn't tend to do a lot with each one individually. We did stuff together. So it was like we were having fun together. We did a lot of acting out of crazy stuff, and but we had a lot of fun, just the three of us. So I didn't tend to single them out much because that's how they got along. Because and it was always making fun of her. She was the youngest one, and we were always making fun of her. So then I said, we better cut this out. Poor little girl. And she goes, I like it. And I liked being teased when I was growing up too. I thought I was the center of attention because I was getting teased all the time. So I loved it. So yeah, that was you don't single them out, and you don't play anything competitive. We did crazy stuff, we just did a lot of stuff together having fun. So, but yeah, don't play games like Monopoly. In Monopoly, the first time round, you already know who's going to win. It's just boring. So, but don't play anything competitive. Just play fun stuff or do fun stuff that they're good at and you're probably lousy at. So yeah, just do fun, silly stuff with them. You call what FOMO? I think that's one of those acronyms. I thought it was like a condition with a kid, like ADHD, and I was looking it up, and people were laughing at me when I was FOMO. What does that mean? I'm looking it up. I'm in my 60s. I'm surprised I'm even on here. When you see an old person on a phone, like older than me even, do you know how they always do it like this? Like they don't use their thumbs. They're always punching it. And every so often I'll catch myself doing that. And I'm like, oh, never mind. I'll use my thumbs. But you can always tell when someone's older, not just by how they look, but they use their finger when they're using their phone. Okay. How do I get my 2-year-old off his pacifier? I only give it to him to say, okay, well, that's the problem. You're still giving it to him. It's a very mixed message here. So yeah, if you want him off it, it's like pulling off a Band-Aid. You do it quickly. I'll tell you how I did it with my son. He was 18 months old. And the only reason I even let him go that long, because I didn't want to have it that long, is we lived in Australia and we were going back to Canada to visit my family. And it was going to be a 24-hour travel, like trip. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to get on a plane with an 18-month-old who loves a dummy, and there's no way I'm going to take it away until after the trip. We get home, and I basically took it away right away. We went around together and symbolically collected all the dummies, put them in a little Ziploc bag, and then he held the little Ziploc bag, and I held him, and it was out in the back in the garage, and I opened up the big wheelie bin lid, and I said, now they're all gone, put them in there, and then I shut the lid. Now, if Dad had done that, he might have cried for it, but he knew when Mom did something, it was going to happen. So he never once asked for it. I was like this. I thought, I'm going to have one hell of a week. Not once did he ever ask for a dummy. Not once. Because he knew when I did something that it was it. And I said it, that's it. They're going away, and that's it. They're all gone. Bye, bye, bye. And I didn't make it a big deal. Like I didn't go, oh, bye. I just said bye, bye. And then we went on to different things. And that was it. And, but yeah, I thought for sure he was going to cry. Now, is that the best way to do it? I don't know. I think I kind of lucked out with that, to be honest. Every so often he'd go like this, reaching for a dummy. And then he'd look over at me, and I'd look away like I didn't notice. There's no way I'd get eye contact. He might have cried. So I just pretended I didn't notice. But yeah, I was really on edge for a couple days there. But yeah, I think I lucked out, to be honest. But I do believe it should just have them part of the process of saying goodbye to the dummies, and make sure they're put away somewhere where they know you're not going to crawl in there to get them. They know when something, my kids knew when something went in that wheelie bin, it wasn't coming out again. So you're an Aussie. Yeah, my son was born in Sydney, and my daughter was born in Brisbane, and I was there for about 20 years. And then we moved. My mother got ill. She was elderly and since passed, died in my arms. I was just very lucky. And not that she died, but then I was right there. Because you never know if you're going to get there in time. Anyway, so then we moved back here to Canada. Just for my mom. I would never have left Australia. I hated immigrating. It's such a big move. And I loved Australia. Do you know I was in Australia for like about 20 years, and I never had one friend from North America. Not one. In all those years. Isn't that weird? You'd think I would have, wouldn't you? Nope, not one. I was very integrated into the Australian way. And yeah, you'd think I would have met some Canadians or Americans, wouldn't you? Just never did. Okay, a runner. You've got a 5 to 8-year-old who's a runner. It's a little bit old to be putting them on a restraint, but I would say no running on the behavior board. And whenever they do so, there's going to be a consequence for that. And that's a safety issue. Like, I'm almost tempted to say I'd probably put them on a leash. Like, because that's, to me, I'm a real safety nut. But you can't put an 8-year-old on a leash. Even a 5-year-old's a bit old for that. So yeah, I don't know if I would do that with that age. I'd probably just say no more running. If you do, here's the consequence. Do you understand? So use the behavior board. It's on my link there. Everything I've got to offer is on that link. So yeah, that's what I would do if I were you. Just have a consequence. It's like, I like to speed, but the only reason I don't, well, I don't have a fast car, but even if I did, I probably wouldn't speed that much. But I certainly don't tend to do the speed limit. And I would be even less inclined to do it if I thought I'd never get a ticket. So if there's no consequence to doing something that you enjoy doing, like running or speeding, why would you stop doing it? Like, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, make sure there's a consequence. And it's not don't treat it like a punishment. I always treated it like, well, that's up to you. It's your choice. You got to be accountable. Like, I'm accountable. If I do something wrong, I'm accountable. My kids knew when I did something wrong, I was accountable. Like, I had to do something. There was a consequence for Mom too. They understood you're accountable. You do something, then, if you do something wrong, you got to do something right. It's just the way it is, right? They also learned growing up. That's why I never had to tell my kids what to do, and I didn't discipline them really either. They understood from a really young age, you got to do what you need to do before you can do what you want to do. Like, people say, how do I get my kids to do their chores? Well, if my kids wanted to watch TV, I'd say, have you finished your chores? Oh, no, sorry, Mom. They'd do those quickly. Then, you see, there was no telling them what to do. I'm trying to make your life as easy as possible. That's what I'm trying to do here. Yeah, they make bracelets with a cord between them. So a leash, but yeah, I was going to say a wrist restraint, but yeah, it's kind of hard to do when they're 8 years old. It's kind of hard to do that. And I'm not sure I like it for that age, unless it's a real safety issue. If they're going to run in front of a bus or something, then yeah, restrain them. Talk about safety. I can remember when I was a kid, because I was born in 1960, and we'd go on trips all across Canada in the station wagon. They'd lay there's some suitcases in the very back, but they'd lay out the flat back, and I'd just be sitting up there and laying down there, and no seat belts or anything. Safety was not a thing. We seemed to survive. I don't know how. It's Crazy. Okay, just so you know, if you do have you want any extra help with any of this stuff, you can go in that link above there. It has everything I've got to offer in bullet point. It's got courses and coaching link, and then also my free behavior board. That's what I start pretty much all my clients on. And it's just a learning tool. You won't use that forever. Like in my course, How to Get Respect in 5 Weeks, the first 3 weeks are the behavior board. The next 2 weeks are in the moment discipline. So you get away from the behavior board. It's just a teaching tool for you. Teaches you how to get organized, set out a rule and a consequence, and follow through. Teaches you how to do all that. And then you won't need that after a while. Oops, sorry. What about the thumb? How do you stop it, and when is it too old to still do it? You mean thumb sucking? That's a tough one. I would get them something else to do, like a trigger. I would say, look, every time you want to suck your thumb here, you use this instead. So you're redirecting. There's all this stuff you can put on, that makes it taste bad and that. But yeah, you can look that up. I haven't heard great success with that. The way that I deal with it with clients is I tell them to redirect. But you got to be watching it all the time. You got to say, okay, no thumb sucking here. You do this instead. And there's all sorts of, they're called stress reliever toys, and they're like the bubble, the popping bubble stuff and all that. And you can just get a whole bag full of them on Amazon for quite cheap. And they're just like stress reliever toys, or they're just little cheap things, stuff like that. So you can hand them that. If you don't suck your thumb, you get this. So you're redirecting it. It's a tough habit. My ex-husband had a friend who sucked his thumb till he was really old. He had no thumbprint. I don't know how old he was, but imagine that. He's like, we're in our 60s now, no thumbprint. That's impressive. I guess a lot of criminals could, if you want to go into a life of crime, you could just, I guess, suck your thumb, your fingers. I guess. Isn't that funny? Yeah, safety's important. And plus, if they're 5 and 8 and they're running, it's just it's a disrespectful thing to do, right? And it's dangerous. 2-year-old does not listen to me. No, they're not listening at 2 years old. They're all about consistent corrective action. They're not about words. It's not here. It's here. They're watching. They're not listening. They're not listening. They can't reason with a 2-year-old. It's consistent corrective action. So I'll tell you the 2 things that I recommend you do with toddlers. I just did a video on this, I think. The first one is you completely childproof your whole house, so you never have to say no. And I did that. There was no bathroom. I had friends who said, oh my God, he was brushing his teeth with the toilet brush again. Why on earth would a toddler have access to a toilet brush? Like, I can't even fathom that. Anyway, but yeah, I completely childproof the whole house. They couldn't get into anything. And then the second thing is have a toy rotation system going so they're never bored. I had 95% of my kids' toys well, they didn't have that many toys, but most of their toys were put away, and I just rotate them out maybe once a week, and they never got bored. So they always had something to do. Yeah, if she's just throwing stuff on the floor and that, she's probably bored. They don't throw stuff that they're having fun with usually. So media blackout is just a standard one. When you're dealing with kids, the behavior board starts at the age of 3. And with the kids, there's a rule for everybody in the family and a consequence for everybody in the family. But the kids have 2 consequences, because the parents, your consequence, you're going to do it because you're the parent. And the first consequence is a positive action. If they won't do that, it's hard to get them to do something. Then you do the negative deprivation. You default to that. So you say, okay, so you didn't mop the floor as you were supposed to. So now media blackout for 24 hours, or take away a favorite toy for 24 hours. Or, you can just go in a million different directions with that, but you're taking something that they like away from them for a period of time. Some families don't. There's 2 things that stump me when I'm coaching is they say, no, we don't yell. It's so rare. I get a client who doesn't yell. Most parents yell. So they say, I didn't yell. And the other one is when they say, oh no, we don't have media. We don't have any screens. It almost throws me for a loop. Well, you don't yell and you've got no screens. And they often go hand in hand. So yeah, it's kind of okay, I have to rethink this now. So yeah, usually it's your parents' rule. If you yell, you always put no yelling. And then the negative deprivation discipline with kids is usually the media blackout for 24 hours. but just take something that they like away for 24 hours. Or you can do, people hate this, you invent leverage, and people hate this, but it's a last resort, inventing leverage. If you want to know about that, you can go Bratbusters Inventing Leverage. If enough people ask for that on here now, I'll explain it, but it's not a popular one, and I don't actually like doing it, but it's something that if you got nothing else, they don't have media, they don't like any toys, they don't care about it, you have to invent leverage, and it's a harder one to do, but anyway, if anyone's interested. Okay. Would you do media blackout for 16-year-old? Probably not. No, I probably wouldn't, because you're just going to build resentment. Teenagers are different. If you want my help with teenagers, it's almost always one-on-one coaching. I've got to figure out your relationship with your teenager. Why are you where you are? What's their life like? Are they sexually active? Do they do drugs? Are they wild? Are they, I got to figure everything out. I got to draw a picture in my mind first before I tell you where to go. Yeah, and you tread carefully with 16-year-olds because they got a lot more power than a 6-year-old does. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily just go there. No, probably wouldn't do media blackout with a 16-year-old unless you built up to that. And even then, it's tricky. We don't go too far with them. Okay, you want me to explain that? Yeah, okay. Inventing leverage. Yeah, I get haters on here for this, and I don't blame you. It's not a good one. Here's how you invent leverage. I hate doing this, but sometimes it's all we've got. It's very rare that I do this in coaching. It's maybe 2 or 3 times a year that I'll do this. It's that rare. But if they've got nothing they can take away, I mean nothing. The kids don't care about anything, and there's real trouble going on. You invent leverage, and there's a million different ways of doing it. I don't want to get too much hate going on here because I don't necessarily want you doing this. Like, it's sort of a last resort. But if you've really got nothing and you've got a 10-year-old who doesn't care about anything, and you invent leverage and you say, I'll tell you what, we're planning on going to Disneyland on Saturday. Let's say you live in Anaheim. Disneyland is just an example. It could be one of those escape room games or, places. So we're planning on going there on Saturday. Okay, we're going to leave at 9 in the morning or 10 in the morning, and we'll spend the day at that paintball or go-karting, whatever. This is what you say to, let's say, it's just an example here of a 10-year-old that doesn't care about anything. You've got no leverage at all. You can't take anything away. You can't get them to do anything you want. So nothing's working. So, okay, we're planning on going to paintball. They are obsessed with paintball. They love it. They love going, and they're all excited about it. So during the week, you've got that behavior board going there, and you say, okay, here's the rule and the consequence, and nothing's working. And nothing, it's just been a really bad week. Okay, the behavior board's been a struggle. You've taken stuff away. They've said F you. They don't care about anything, right? So Saturday morning comes along. We start getting ready for paintball. And you say to them, here's the part. You're going to hate this, but anyway, it's something I use very rarely. Here's what you say. Because you were never going to go to paintball, okay? But you said you're going to go. All week you've said you're going to go. You say to them, okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do here. We had a really rough week. Mention 2 or 3 things that they really did wrong. So you told me to F off the other day. You didn't mop when you were supposed to. So I'll tell you what, we're not going to go to paintball today. But if we have a better week next week, we'll go next Saturday. Do you understand? Chaos usually ensues. It's a tough one. It's a tough one to do. But you've just invented leverage, and you will eventually have to go to paintball. Yes, but you knew you probably weren't going to go that Saturday. So what you're doing is you're not pulling the rug out from under them. You are for now, but you're willing to put it back. And you don't say to them, if you're better. You don't put it like that. Just say, if we have a better week. And then say, do you understand? And leave it at that. And they'll probably be pretty mad at you. But I don't like doing it. And there's a lot of other instructions that go along with that. Like, what do you do during the day? That day you're going to have, I can't go into all that. But yeah, so you invented leverage. It was something that was never going to happen really, but you will eventually have to do it. If you have a really good week, say, okay, great, we're going. Let's go. Get your clothes on. We're going to paintball. You see? They got to earn that. I haven't got any hate yet. You do like it. Okay. Usually I get a lot of hate on that. And I understand it. It's something, like I said, I might do it 2 or 3 times a year with clients. It's that rare that I do that. I hate doing it. I just hate it. But if you got nothing else, and you got to be careful with that one too, because sometimes if it's a really violent kid, I wouldn't do it. It's too much. They'll go nuts. They'll break the TV. They'll go nuts. So we got to judge what their reaction is going to be. Yeah, last resort, good way of putting it. I should probably do a video on that. I did video before. God, so much hate on that. And I don't mind the hate, but I can see why I get it though. I can see why I get it. It's like promising something and you think, and you're not getting it. You got to do it your wording has to be very careful too. Venting leverage. Yeah, it's a nasty one. I got a whole bunch of stuff like that, by the way, but I don't talk about it on TikTok. Sometimes if I'm dealing with crisis work, like real big stuff, there's a whole bunch of stuff I would never discuss on TikTok. Because if you were to isolate some of my, the more difficult stuff, if you were to just isolate that, it wouldn't work. We have to build up to it. We have to have context around it. And we had a lot of this stuff is handed out very carefully, especially with teenagers, because they can be scary. Yeah, there are other techniques to master first. Yes, that's why. And you imagine how many clients I work with, and I maybe do that 2 or 3 times a year. Like it's that rare that I use it. And it can just be something like, do you mostly give advice for teenagers? No, they're more my specialty, but I give advice to pregnant women, pregnant moms, or not moms yet, right up to teenagers. Or as long as they're still living at home and they're somewhat financially dependent upon you, I'll take on that case. But I won't work with people who have 50-year-old kids. And I've been asked to that because it's parent-child relationship still, but I don't do that. Yeah, teenagers are my favorite age. And I started my business doing teenage crisis work. And then I was doing the news one night. Can't go into detail about what happened, but you can imagine. And they wanted me as the front story because this was big news. This kid had done something. And they said, how can we prevent this? And they introduced me as the crisis queen because I was the parenting expert that they bring on this stuff. And they introduced me as the crisis queen. I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to be the crisis queen. I want to be the prevention queen. So I don't lead with that stuff now. Like on TikTok, it's mostly just talking about leadership and all that. But I do a lot of crisis work. But I don't talk about that because it's serious stuff. And I don't want to scare you guys either. Like some of the stuff I deal with is horrible. And I don't work with teenagers. I work with parents. I used to talk to the teenagers, but I don't do that anymore. There's no, I can get better results for you long-term just working with you. Do you give advice for 2-year-olds throwing tantrums? I have a whole course on that called Tantrum Busting. It's in the link above, and it's called Tantrum Busting. It tells exactly how you deal with toddlers. You got to ignore them. Absolutely have to ignore a tantrum. There's another one. I get so much hate for that. That's my clickbait. If I want to get new followers and a bunch of action on my channel, I'll do a video on ignoring tantrums. I just don't have the energy for that all the time. But yeah, if I just did ignoring tantrums every single day, I'd probably have 10 million viewers or followers. But it's just the absolute, people go crazy over that when I say you got to ignore tantrums. We're not ignoring children, we're ignoring bad behavior. Or behavior. We're ignoring what they're doing, not who they are as people. But yeah, you got to ignore that crazy. If you get involved in that, any attention is tantrum food. You completely have to ignore that. But yeah, if you ever see me do a video on ignoring tantrums, you know what I'm doing. It's guaranteed. It's gonna skyrocket. But I'm not here for that. Like that's not why I'm here. I'm here to get you on the right track, to set you up as a leader, not just to get all the views. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of a cheap way of doing it. But I still have to put it out there every so often because it's so important. Should I tell the swing story? If anyone's new here, they might not know. If anyone wants to hear the swing story, it's why you ignore tantrums. It's a perfect true story on why you ignore tantrums. Stop feeding the behavior. Yeah, and a tantrum is not bad behavior. It's a total loss of control, and it peters out if it gets no attention. It's like watering plants. They eventually will just die out. The tantrums just die out if you don't water them. It's like that. That's a good way of putting it. Ignoring tantrums is like stop watering plants. Tantrums just die out. Yeah, they just go away. They just do. Okay, advice for an overweight teenager that's not interested in being active. Tell you my daughter, she wasn't overweight, but she wasn't active. And so what I've been into fitness my whole life. So anyway, we used to I'd wake her up early every single morning before school and we'd do this walk. We just did. And then she hated it when I picked her up and I had the dog in my hand at middle school. I remember this. I'd pick her up at middle school and she'd see me with the dog standing there and she knew we were walking home and it was a good walk. So yeah, we just started walking and talking and now we both go to the gym we both go to the same gym every single day. And she has a holistic nutritionist degree. She doesn't use it right now, but she's super into fitness and health and I'm obsessed with all that stuff. So yeah, you got to set a good example and you do it with them. But find something that they enjoy. We used to walk and talk. That was our fun bonding mother-daughter stuff. So can I give a hug if they're still crying, but come to me for one during tantrum and then calms down? Yeah, sort of. What you do is you don't go overboard. Oh, my angel, my precious angel. You're sort of making it sound like it was a horrendous thing. I don't make a big deal out of it. I go, yeah, you're fine. Then I just go, oh, do you want to read a book? It's kind of like that. I don't make a big deal. I don't put a lot of emphasis into I don't discuss it afterwards and I don't console them afterwards. You just start reading a book with them. Next thing you know, they've just forgotten all about it, right? You redirect them. Not during, but afterwards. Well, you asked about you're in Trinidad. My son did a big exam. I'm not happy with the results. I don't know what you want me to answer there. Yeah, give a hug and then we play. Yeah, don't go on, oh, my angel, are you better now? Do you feel better? I don't do any of that. That's, again, feeding the whole tantrum stuff. Then they're going to learn, wait, if I give a tantrum, then I'm going to get lots of cuddles. And you see what I mean? It's, yeah, it makes them feel sorry for themselves, sort of, whereas it just peters out. That's what happens. It just stops happening. My son had tantrums. My daughter never did. They either born to have them or not. But those tantrums were a lot worse around their dad, who would talk to him during the tantrum. And they ended a lot quicker with mom. Want to hear the swing story? Yeah, the swing story is my best story. It's not my favorite story. The pool story is my favorite one, but I've already told that one. The swing story is why you ignore tantrums. And my son was 2. I took him to the park, and there was just me and another mom with a 2-year-old boy there. Two moms, 2-year-old boys, 2 swings. So we each put I didn't really know her. I think I'd seen her around. She was new in the neighborhood. And so we're like, hi, how are you? All that. And we're talking as we're putting our little boys in the swings. They both pointed to the other swing. So they wanted the other swing. And we're like, well, let's just who cares? We'll switch them over. Just as we picked them up to switch them over, they both went into tantrums, full-blown tantrums, like both at the exact same time. Like crazy. Kids are crazy. So anyway, toddlers are crazy. So anyway, then we both took them to the bench. She went to one bench, I went to the other. So my son, as soon as I sat him on the bench, he went to run for the swing. I knew he was going to do that. I put my arm out fast. And then he went, oh, okay. He wasn't going to get away with that. So he tantrumed for about 2 minutes. It wasn't a huge tantrum, but it was a tantrum. Anyway, so he tantrumed for about 2 minutes. And then as soon as he was done, I said, okay, y'all done? Let's go back on the swing. Put him on the swing. He's having a great time. For about 20 minutes, her kid was screaming, having a tantrum. She's talking to him the whole time. Give me a hug. And talk about how do you feel? All you had to do. She's giving him the mini therapy session. She's feeding it, feeding it, feeding it, feeding it. Anyway, and he's just getting worse and worse and worse, about 20 minutes. Then he goes into the hiccup cries. He's finished. Then she starts talking about the whole tantrum. Now, if you had just, oh my God, this poor kid, she's dragging him through the mud. This thing lasted 30 minutes. I think he finally went on the swing. My kid was tired of it. We went home. And I'm thinking, which kid was happier? Which mom was happier? Which method was more effective? My kid knew that there's no way I was ever going to give him any attention during a tantrum. He knew also that I ignore the crazy and I reward the calm. As soon as he calmed down, he got back on the swing. They learn that. They just learn it. So he knew he got back on the swing. This other kid, there was no reward. He stops tantruming. Then she drags him through the emotional mud with a mini therapy session. This poor kid, I felt really sorry for him. But anyway, so there you go. Those are those mini therapy sessions that are so popular right now, really trendy with the please your parent style. And it's just so trendy right now. It's garbage. It's trash. Get rid of it. That whole situation could have been avoided. That poor kid dragging him through the mud. They looked miserable. And I saw them many times after that. Things got worse and worse and worse with them. And I broke my foot and have a 3-year-old that's insane. Any advice? Well, you can hire me if you want. But yeah, I can't help you be more mobile. I'm not a doctor. Mind tantrums for at most 5 minutes, especially less, but they are very frequent. Yeah, tantrums. I do have a whole course on tantrums. It's called Tantrum Busting. And, oh, shoot. Just a sec here. Just 1 second here. It doesn't make any sense. Someone just joined a meeting, but I didn't have a meeting with them. Anyway. Yeah, I'll deal with it later. Don't worry about it. I mean, I'm talking to myself. Why did they do that? They thought we had a session, but I had just reserved a session, but they hadn't confirmed it. So I'll have to sort that out later. It's no big deal. It happens. Okay. Mind tantrums for almost 5 minutes, typically less, but they are very frequent. Well, how old is this child? 2-year-olds, if they're 2, it's just going to take them time to outgrow them. Because it's not that it's that they just lose emotional control. They just lose control, and then they're off and running. That's the tantrum. They're not thinking. They're not. It's just they're gone. It's a brain, like an aneurysm almost. They just completely lose it. There's no bad behavior involved in a tantrum. They might do rotten stuff while they're having a tantrum, like kick and bite and all that. You have to ignore all that stuff, okay? Just restrain them if they're getting violent. But yeah, they can't control themselves, is what I'm trying to say. But they will eventually learn that if you never feed it, it will end. It will naturally die out. The tantrums just end. Well, you said I can no longer chase him and I don't want to yell. Just look at my course. I actually have a course for 3 to 12-year-olds. I can't help you with being more mobile. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't. You're asking me, how do I be a leader in one answer here? Leadership takes about 5 weeks to learn how to do it. Check out my course. It's in the link above. It's a process. I can't tell you how to be a leader on a TikTok answer here. The course is what that's for. What do you say about needs and wants? I'll write it, please. So you meet their needs and you manage their wants. Their needs are food, shelter, all that stuff. And then also fun, love, attention. So you meet their needs, and then you manage their wants. Their wants are everything going their own way. They want more ice cream when they're told no already. It's the stuff that they don't need. And that's the stuff that they tantrum over. So you meet their needs and manage their wants. Also, my kids understood when they were growing up from a really young age, you got to do what you need to do before you can do what you want to do. So they wouldn't have watched TV if they hadn't done their chores, that kind of thing. It just wouldn't have happened. Like, they understood that. You got to do what you need to do that's the self-discipline. We talk about discipline like it's a negative thing when we're talking about kids, but really you're disciplining them and then they learn self-discipline. My kids were pretty much self-disciplining by the time they were 3.5 to 4. They just understood right from wrong and they made good choices because they understood if they didn't, mom would come in with a consequence. They just knew that. So they just made good choices. Like, they would never have watched TV without having, you know what I'm saying? They just understood that from a really young age. What age should we start establishing chores? I would say 3. My kids had 3 chores every day. They had to make the bed, clean up their toys had to be put away, and they had to put their laundry away because I did that every day. But it took under 2 minutes. I'm a very clean, organized minimalist. So they only had a few toys out and everything was very organized. So there was an empty hanger for the shirt. That's where that went. It took under 2 minutes to do all their chores. Make their bed was just a duvet cover they had to pull up. And yeah, super easy. Set them up for success. They just did it. They just didn't question it. And their dirty clothes always had to go in the hamper. So they'd get undressed in their room, get dressed when they were really little. And then they took their dirty clothes and ran into the laundry room and they put them in the hamper. But it was so easily done. There was no chaos either. That's why a toy rotation system is so important. And I'm not saying everyone should be super clean and organized, but it makes it a lot easier for kids. You look at classrooms, they're organized. They don't have chaos in a classroom and clutter. They have, like, they're very organized so that kids know what to do. You're setting them up for success, not failure. Like, a lot of kids, or a lot of parents say, well, they never clean their room. It's a total disaster. And they'll have like a 5-year-old's room that's just a cluttered, hoarding mess, and they expect their 5-year-old to look after that. That's not a fair and reasonable expectation. So yeah, my kids were 3. They were also 3 when they started getting allowance, and they're not related at all. Allowance and chores are completely separate. So I don't pay for chores. You live here, you look after yourself, you clean up after yourself. Like, I would never pay for that. You know, to me, that's as stupid as paying them to wipe their bums after they go to the bathroom. Like, it's just ridiculous to me. I would never pay a kid to put their dirty laundry in a hamper. I just wouldn't do it. But they all deserve to learn how to manage money. I have a video, I think it's pinned to the top here, and it's chores versus allowance or something. It was a popular video. That video went viral, and all over the world I was doing interviews on that one. I don't know why. I have no idea why people like that. What's an example of an allowance task? There's no tasks for allowance. Allowance is just something that you do. Look at that video. It's pinned at the top, and it's called Chores versus Allowance, I think. I'm just going to look it up here. Oh, it won't show up on my computer because they don't show pins on a computer. Just a second here. I'm just going to look it up. I think it's called Chores. It goes into detail about how you manage chores and allowance. My computer's really slow when I'm doing a live on my computer with YouTube and then on here also. I'm just looking it up. It's just not coming up. Come on. Here we go. Oh, keep allowance and chores separate. That got, wow, 2.3 million views on that one. Keep allowance and chores separate. Look that up. Write that down. Keep allowance and chores separate. It just explains it all in great detail. A whole bunch of people have tagged that one too. I never look at all that stuff. You know why? Because most people are saying how ugly and fat and old I am. Ah. Okay, Holy 2 hit our family like a train. How to deal with constant whining. I'm dying. Ignore the crazy and reward the calm. So if they're whining and crying, you do as much ignoring as possible. And then when they're good, dive in and praise that by reading a book with them or playing with them. As soon as they start whining or crying again, say, okay, we're all done. Don't make a big deal out of it. They learn through actions, not words. They're watching you and they're learning through your actions, not your words. Do not talk to them about this stuff. Complete trash, all this mini therapy sessions. It's such a trend right now. So I got to shut this down because it's one of the videos is moving. It's driving me nuts. Anyway, yeah, this is what I'm up against in on TikTok especially. Is the young toddler stuff. Is everyone wants to have these mini therapy sessions with toddlers, talking about all their big feelings and big emotions like they're in therapy. It's just insane. Think about it. It's insane. It's just garbage. I don't know where that came from. Probably do, but anyway. I remember when that first started happening, I thought, boy, we're in trouble. And yeah. Those are the same parents who want their children to get participation awards. And then they're raising adults who want to get an award for getting on a bus. I mean, it just gets, where does it end, you know? Oh, if your 4-year-old cousin throws big fits and the cousin, so your niece or nephew throws fits, 4 years old, and your 2-year-old doesn't, they are born to have tantrums or they don't. A 2-year-old, like my daughter never had a tantrum. I never had one. We would just be like this, watching another kid I would never have had a tantrum. I can remember I was tiny because I had no words. I can remember this is before I could talk. And I talked early, as you can imagine. Anyway, and I can remember looking at kids having tantrums like they were nuts. I thought, what the heck are you doing? I just thought it was crazy. So yeah, they don't learn how to have tantrums. They're born to have them or they're not. Okay, how do you talk to a teenager about a situation they're in that you don't like without alienating? Coaching. I can't answer that here because I don't know what it is. It's a different answer for a lot of different things. And yeah. Okay, I'll tell you the two most important skills with parenting teenagers, though. Number one is listening to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with, and you never say, do you want to talk to me about that? Good luck with that, by the way. It won't work. And then number two is negotiating. Yeah, you got to learn how to negotiate. Like, I want you home by 11 o'clock tonight. And then they say, I want to come home at 1. Say, oh, okay, maybe 12. Does that sound good? You negotiate pretty much everything with teenagers. Start low so that you get where you want to go. Like, if you want them home at 12, say, can you come home at 11? And you see what I mean? They'll catch on to that. You can't fool them for very long. What would you say is the biggest teaching challenge with a single child? I'm concerned about empathy. The biggest teaching with a single child? Well, I'd say they're all, it doesn't matter. You mean an only child? They're all kind of the same. We're all just humans. It doesn't matter if you're an only child or, so I don't know what you mean by that. Oh, do you know what's interesting? Is that I was not very good with, I figured out why. I'm not very good with injustices and meanness. I've never been bullied, but I struggle with understanding that because I was only raised around adults and they show you empathy. So all I knew was empathy. There was no one was hitting me in the face or anything. So I grew up with empathy because I was only treated with empathy. No one had ever done anything mean to me when I was growing up. I didn't have siblings. I have a sibling, but he's like 16 years older. So I had 3 adults in the house and me. So, but yeah. I think I learned empathy just because no one was ever mean to me, so I didn't learn how to be mean. Does that make sense? But that can also work against you because you can overspoil a single child too, an only child too. So got to make sure you don't spoil them. Mirroring language teaches them. Well, I think you just set a good example, right? That's all. They're watching you. They're not listening to you. They're watching you. Trying to ignore as much as I can, but oof, he's good at it. Yeah, so don't let him win, though. A leader doesn't let stuff get under their skin. Yeah, don't let them see you sweat. Yeah, if you want my help with that teenager, you're gonna have to hire me because teenager stuff, I don't know what it's about. And if it's about sex or drugs or anything, you gotta build your relationship before you get into all that. So it's not just a matter of I want to discuss this. I have to assess your situation. I have to assess your relationship with your teenager first before we even start to decide how to move. Yeah, I have to assess where you went. I have to get you to a place where you can talk to them because maybe you're not there right now. I don't know. Yeah. How would you set yourself up for success when it comes to spoiling kids? Like, how would I know if what I'm giving is too much? When they start asking for more, that's usually. My kids knew if they ever asked for anything, they never get anything, ever. Like, I remember at the checkout lane, like other kids would be, can I have a candy bar? Oh, my kids would never have done that. Maybe the odd time I might say, oh, choose a treat. And because it's only a treat if you offer it and they don't ask, right? So yeah, if it's when they start asking for stuff, that's when you know you've spoiled them. My kids wouldn't have asked. I always said, you ask, you get nothing, because that's not a treat, right? That's me filling a demand. So yeah, it's when they start asking, and they get mad when you don't give them the stuff that they want. I'm going to tell you a story. I think it's a really good story. It hasn't come up on here, but it's just a really good lesson I taught my son. I called it Mom's Bank, and it was the allowance. So I said to him, Pokemon cards had just come in, and all of his friends were buying Pokemon cards. And I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to ban Pokemon cards with you, and for a whole year, and because there's going to be a lesson at the end of it. He was probably about 8, and I said, are you okay with that? And he was curious because he trusted me, right? And he says, yeah, okay. So the whole year, all of his friends are spending all their money all their allowance on these Pokemon cards. They were trading them. My son's just sitting there eating his sandwich, watching them. And they were all thinking, what's wrong with you? And he goes, no, he says, I just don't have any. And mom won't let me have any or something like that. I don't know. Didn't become an issue. So by the end of the year, the next year they went back, all the Pokemon cards were out of style. And the kids were using them to level off their chairs. I mean, they were just garbage at that point. They'd wasted all their money. So I said to my son, okay, let's go to mom's bank now. So I went to his bank and I showed him his balance. And I said, I figured out how much money all your friends were spending on Pokemon cards. And I said, I've added it all up. It was like $300 or something. And I said, because here's the lesson. You didn't waste your money on that garbage. So because of that, I'm going to double it and you can spend, it was $600, whatever it was, buy whatever you want. And I don't know how much it was, but he bought several of the new, and he just kept some in the bank. He was a good saver because I taught him how to do this, right? So he kept some in the bank, but he bought 2 or 3 of the new PlayStation game had just come out. No one had it yet. It was an expensive one. It's in Australia. They were like $80 to $100 there. And anyway, so we bought 1 or 2 of those. And then he had some friends over and they were all, wow, it wasn't even birthday or Christmas. And they said, how'd you get this? And he goes, well, this was my Pokemon card money. And they were all like, oh, because they were so sick of the Pokemon cards. So, you know what I mean? It was just a really good lesson. I have a whole bunch of stuff like that I did with my kids. It was teaching them how to be responsible and teaching them just lessons. It also sets you up more in the leadership role. Like it's just because it was a good lesson and it was like a positive thing. So that Mom's Bank, I had a whole bunch of stuff I did with Mom's Bank. That was just one example of that. But yeah, I really like the allowance, the system that I have set up for allowance. So check out that video. It is called Keep Allowance and Chores Separate. It must be, I think I pinned that one because it was a really popular one. So it would be one of the top 3 in my TikTok. And, but it's a really good way of, because when they're teenagers too, you're still doing this when they're teenagers. And every Saturday morning, if they didn't come and look at me writing, only I wrote in Mom's Bank, then they didn't get allowance that week. So they had to be, so then you're chatting about stuff, right? It's just like an opportunity to chat and see, here's your balance, here's the interest I'm paying you. And it's just another way of bonding with your kids, especially as they get older. Anyway, I got to run. Thanks so much for watching. And we'll talk again tomorrow. Hopefully go to my link at the top. It has everything I've got in there if you want any help with courses or coaching or your free behavior board. So check that out. Bye now.